Last time, we left with a mystery. Inside a large language model sit billions of numbers, dials that somehow hold everything it knows. Nobody set them by hand, and nobody could. So today, we watch a machine start with pure noise and end up as something you can have a conversation with. And along the way, you will learn something odd. Why a machine that can write you a sonnet finds it strangely hard to count the letter R in the word strawberry. Before anything can be learned, we fix one problem. A computer cannot read. It has no idea what a letter is. It only handles numbers. So text must be chopped into pieces and turned into numbers. And those pieces are called tokens. Here is the surprise. A token is usually not a letter and often not even a whole word. It is a chunk. Common words are one token. Rarer words get split, so strawberry might arrive as two chunks, something like straw and berry, each becoming a number. Sit with that because it explains one of the most famous complaints about these systems. When you ask how many times the letter R appears in strawberry, the model is not looking at STRAWBERRY. It never saw letters. It saw two chunks and a pair of numbers. Asking it to count letters is like asking someone to count the brush strokes in a painting they only ever saw as a thumbnail. It can absolutely work it out by spelling the word out step by step or reaching for a tool, but it is working around its eyesight, not simply reading. That is not stupidity. That is the shape of its senses. And hold on to that idea of senses, because when all the training we're about to describe is finished, what you get is not a chatbot. It is something much stranger. Now that text is numbers, the learning can begin, and the method is almost insultingly simple. Take a real sentence from somewhere on the internet. At every single position in it, ask the model to guess what token comes next. Then, compare each guess with what the sentence actually said and measure how wrong it was. Then, and this is the whole trick, nudge every one of those billions of dials a tiny fraction in whatever direction would have made those guesses a little less wrong. In practice, thousands of passages are processed together, and the dials move once for the whole batch. Guess, measure, nudge. That is learning. There is nothing else. And here is the quiet genius of it, the thing that let this approach swallow the entire internet. Older artificial intelligence needed humans to label things, thousands of people tagging photos and writing correct answers by hand. Expensive, slow, and it never scaled. But look at what we just did. Nobody labeled anything. The answer was already sitting there, in the text, as the next word. Every sentence humanity has ever written is a free exercise with the solution printed at the end. The internet is its own answer key. So now, repeat. Not 1,000 times, not 1,000,000, trillions of words chewed through by thousands of specialized chips running for months, each pass nudging those dials a hair closer to a better guess. Nothing clever happens in any single step. The intelligence is in the accumulation. A canyon, after all, is just water, repeated. At the end of it, the noise has become structure. The dials are no longer random. They encode grammar, facts, style, reasoning, code. So the training finishes. Trillions of words absorbed. Now, pause the video and make a prediction. If you type a question into this freshly trained machine, what do you think comes back? Here is the part almost nobody tells you. What you have at this moment is not a chatbot. It is not helpful. It has no manners and no idea it is supposed to answer anything. It is a pure text continuer. Ask this raw model, called a base model, what the capital of France is, and it might not answer at all. It might reply with more questions, because on the internet, a question is very often followed by another question. It is not being difficult. It is doing exactly what it was trained to do, continuing the pattern. The thing that read the internet is not the thing you talk to. So we teach it a second thing. Manners. Humans write thousands of examples of the behavior we want. A question followed by a genuinely good answer. An instruction followed by careful work. The model trains on those the same way. Guess and nudge and learns a new pattern. When text looks like a request, what follows is a helpful reply. This stage is called instruction tuning, and it is where the assistant is born. A stack of cards, each showing a question on top and a good answer underneath, being fed into the model, which comes out wearing a name badge reading Assistant. Then, a final polish. Being helpful is not one fixed thing. Should an answer be long or short, cautious or blunt? So the model produces two different answers to the same request, and people say which one they prefer. Now, no human team could rank millions of answers, so those human choices are used to train a second, smaller model whose only job is to predict which answer a person would pick. That stand-in judge can then score the main model relentlessly at a scale no human could match. This is also where refusals are shaped, the reason it declines some requests and not others. Much of the personality you recognize comes from here. It was not written by a programmer, it was voted into existence. Two answer cards labeled A and B side by side for the same question, with a human hand giving a thumbs up to card B, repeated many times down the page. When all of that finishes, the dials are locked, frozen. Whatever the world looked like when training stopped is the world the model lives in forever. It does not quietly keep reading. That is why it can be confidently unaware of things that happened last month, and why teaching it something new means either handing the fact to it in your message or going back and training it further, which is far from free. A glowing wall of dials sealed behind glass with a padlock, a calendar stopped on a past date, and a sign reading "Frozen." So, here is the big picture. Text is chopped into tokens and turned into numbers, which is why the machine cannot see letters the way you do. Then, guess the next token, measure the error, nudge the dials across trillions of words with no human labels needed because the text is its own answer key. That produces a raw text continuer, not an assistant. So we show it examples of good behavior, then let human preference shape its judgment. 3 stages: read the world, learn the job, learn the taste. But we have been treating the model itself as a magic box that takes text and produces a guess. Being its own answer key is what let this method feed on the whole internet. But something still had to digest all of it. Inside that box is one specific invention from 2017, an idea about how words pay attention to each other, and it is the single most important design in modern artificial intelligence. That is next time.